Farmer Samuel Harding heroically landed his yellow crop duster to rescue a stranded girl during a fierce storm. After the rescue, his plane was unexpectedly intercepted by an F-16, adding a twist of mystery to the event. His heroic deed turned an ordinary farmer into an honored guest at a military base, greeted by none other than a general. A mysterious letter received the next day awakened an ancient legacy and opened the door to the past. Delving into archives and forgotten memorials, Samuel uncovered evidence of great deeds and self-sacrifice. Encounters with local residents and veterans unveiled new chapters of heroic history, inspiring him to make further discoveries. Samuel realized that his destiny was now intertwined with this grand legacy, and he embraced the challenge to preserve it for future generations. This thrilling story of courage, destiny, and legacy promises many more unexpected twists and revelations. Stay tuned if you want to know how the story ends, and don't forget to subscribe to the channel. There are many more exciting stories ahead. In the early blush of dawn, when the sky still wore the quiet promise of a new day, the solitary hum of an aging crop duster mingled with the rustle of the awakening land. Samuel Harding, a farmer whose weathered face bore the honest marks of decades spent under the open sky, piloted his beloved yellow aircraft with the ease of one who had long become a part of the very air he traversed. Over vast, undulating fields that stretched into a horizon of golden wheat and patchy green pastures, his plane danced lightly on the currents of a gentle summer breeze. The land below, etched with the careful geometry of cultivated rows and dotted with humble farmsteads, told silent stories of perseverance, quiet triumphs, and deep-rooted connection to nature. As Samuel guided his craft along the familiar flight path over his property, his keen eyes absorbed every detail: the shimmer of dew on broad-leafed cornstalks, the distant glimmer of a meandering river winding through a dense copse of poplars, and a subtle shift in the air that heralded an approaching change. The serenity of routine was soon to be disrupted by an unforeseen anomaly, a ripple in the ordinary tapestry of his morning flight. Amid the tranquil mosaic of farmland, a small, isolated movement near a narrow, winding dirt road caught his attention. There, in the dim light of the early morning and partially obscured by the encroaching shadow of a long-abandoned barn, a lone figure appeared stranded. The figure, a young girl whose presence seemed almost ethereal against the rugged backdrop of tilled earth and weathered stone, stood in hesitant isolation. Samuel's experienced eyes quickly discerned that something was amiss. The girl's posture, a mix of uncertainty and distress, contrasted sharply with the stillness of the fields. Though the landscape was vast and inviting to those who cherished solitude, it could be unforgiving for the vulnerable. The sight stirred in him a deep-seated resolve, a commitment that had always defined him, not just as a farmer and a pilot, but as a man of quiet honor and empathy. The plane's engine murmured steadily as Samuel adjusted his course, his mind working through the implications of this unexpected discovery. Memories of his own youthful days spent roaming these lands, of times when neighbors had lent a hand in moments of need, surged within him. The gentle rhythm of his flight was punctuated by a determined calculation, to intervene, to offer assistance where fate had left a tender soul stranded in a world too vast and indifferent. The weather, too, was not entirely benign that day. Dark, distant clouds hinted at an approaching summer storm, its rapid advance threatening to shroud the familiar landscape in uncertainty. This brewing tempest would soon test not only the mettle of the land but also the character of those brave enough to heed the call of compassion. With steady hands on the controls and a heart buoyed by an unwavering sense of duty, Samuel initiated the descent toward the narrow road where the girl awaited. The plane's underbelly, illuminated by the soft glow of the rising sun, cast long, shifting shadows over the patch of land, as if signaling the arrival of something both momentous and inevitable. The rhythm of his thoughts merged seamlessly with the pulse of the earth below, the steady beat of nature's own heart, guiding him through an intricate dance between human determination and the wild unpredictability of the elements. As the craft neared the ground, the details of the scene came into sharper focus. The girl, no older than 16, was clad in a threadbare jacket and worn boots, her hair gently tousled by the errant wind. She stood beside a modest vehicle that had clearly seen better days, a relic of a bygone era, its paint faded and its engine silent, stranded on the edge of a road that seemed to have been forgotten by time. Her eyes, wide with apprehension yet glimmering with an unspoken hope, met the descent of the crop duster with a mixture of relief and cautious wonder. In that moment, the boundaries between the sky and the earth blurred, as two disparate worlds converged in an act of quiet heroism. The decision to land was not taken lightly. Samuel's mind, honed by years of solitary flights over these open expanses, had learned to trust the subtle cues of the land and the whispers of the wind. He knew that every moment spent in the air was a moment away from those who needed him most, and the sight of the young girl in distress affirmed the importance of being present for those who could not summon the strength to seek help themselves. With deliberate calm, he initiated the landing sequence, aligning the plane with a makeshift strip formed by the worn road and the open field beyond, a narrow corridor that would serve as both runway and lifeline. The plane's wheels kissed the unyielding surface with a gentle jolt, stirring up a cloud of dust and loose debris that danced in the early light. As the machine slowed, its engine gradually subsiding into a soft purr, Samuel surveyed the scene with a focused determination. The young girl remained where she had been, a solitary figure against the sprawling rural canvas, her gaze fixed upward in gratitude and silent curiosity. The hum of the engine, now a fading whisper, gave way to the natural symphony of the countryside, the distant cawing of birds, the rustle of dry leaves stirred by the breeze, and the soft murmur of the approaching storm. In that suspended moment, the world seemed to hold its breath. The beauty of the early morning was now intermingled with the gravity of a selfless act, a convergence of fate and free will. Samuel's heart, steadfast and kind, pulsed with the resolve to extend a helping hand. The decision was made in the silent language of compassion, one that transcended words and was understood by all who had ever found themselves vulnerable in the face of life's unpredictable trials. Even as the rumble of distant thunder began to hint at the imminent arrival of a summer storm, Samuel moved with deliberate care. The plane, now safely on the ground, was shut down with a practiced efficiency born of countless landings on rough, unpaved strips. The farmer climbed out of the cockpit with a measured grace, his boots stirring the loose gravel as he made his way toward the stranded figure. Each step on the uneven terrain was imbued with a sense of purpose, a silent pledge that no call for help would go unanswered. The land, scarred yet resilient, bore witness to his every action, a testament to the enduring spirit of those who nurture it with their sweat and compassion. With the storm's shadow slowly encroaching upon the horizon, Samuel's thoughts turned to the day ahead. The responsibilities of the farm, the cycles of planting and reaping, the unspoken bond between man and nature, all these converged with the pressing need of the moment. There was an urgency in the air, a delicate balance between the beauty of nature and its inherent unpredictability, that spurred him onward. The sight of the young girl, now more clearly illuminated against the encroaching gloom, was a reminder that even in the most familiar of settings, fate could weave an unexpected tapestry of events. As Samuel approached, every detail of the girl's plight became etched in his memory, the way her eyes shimmered with a mixture of fear and tentative hope. The worn fabric of her clothing speaking of hard-won battles against nature's caprice, and the forlorn state of the abandoned vehicle that stood as a silent sentinel to her isolation. The storm, with its dark promises and wild energy, would soon turn the landscape into a realm of chaos and transformation. Yet, in that fragile moment of connection, the inherent kindness of a man dedicated to the land prevailed over the looming threat of nature's fury. The air was charged with a subtle electricity as Samuel reached the girl's side, his presence a stabilizing force amid the uncertain stirrings of the approaching tempest. There was no need for words, for the unspoken language of shared humanity and compassion was enough to bridge the gap between their disparate worlds. In the soft glow of dawn, with the first droplets of rain already beginning to fall, the scene was set for a journey that would test the limits of endurance and kindness, a journey where the interplay of light and shadow, of calm and storm, would reveal the true measure of a man's heart. With the storm now a tangible presence on the horizon and the promise of an unpredictable day unfolding, Samuel's determination crystallized into a single, unwavering purpose. The decision to leave the comfort of his cockpit, to abandon the safety of the skies for the uncertain ground below, was born not of obligation but of an intrinsic belief in the sanctity of life. In that act of descent, of touching the earth with gentle resolve, lay the essence of his character, a farmer whose life was interwoven with the land, whose spirit was as enduring as the fields he nurtured, and whose compassion transcended the boundaries of time and circumstance. As the first chapter of this unforeseen tale drew to a close, the land braced itself for the intensifying rhythm of nature's forces, and the young girl's fate became inextricably linked to that of the kind-hearted pilot. The interplay between the vast, mercurial sky and the humble, enduring earth had set the stage for events that would ripple far beyond the confines of a single stormy morning. In the quiet determination of one man, the promise of a brighter tomorrow shone through even as dark clouds gathered in the distance. In the aftermath of the emergency landing, the sky had shifted from the muted glow of early dawn to a tumultuous canvas of brooding grays and violent flashes of lightning. The crop duster, its yellow fuselage now dulled by streaks of rain and specks of dust, rested on a sodden strip of gravel that once served as a forgotten rural pathway. Samuel Harding, whose weathered hands had guided the aircraft through many a stormy day, now faced a new challenge, escorting the fragile young girl away from the precarious roadside and into the sanctuary of his homestead. With the distant rumble of thunder as an unyielding soundtrack, he gathered his resolve and gently led her toward the only haven he knew, a farmhouse that clung to the edge of a rugged valley, where the land bore silent testimony to countless seasons of hardship and hope. The journey from the landing site to the farmhouse unfolded beneath a sky swollen with rain. The battered earth, slick with the early downpour, transformed the narrow country lane into a winding, unpredictable path. Every step Samuel took was measured and deliberate, mindful of both the treacherous footing and the emotional weight of the responsibility he now carried. The girl, whose eyes reflected a mingling of fear and fragile trust, followed closely. Her small, tentative footsteps echoed the uncertainty of the moment, yet each was buoyed by the quiet assurance found in Samuel's steadfast presence. As they pressed onward, the landscape around them shifted dramatically. The once familiar farmlands gave way to a more rugged terrain, a mosaic of wild, untamed fields bordered by clumps of resilient scrub and the towering silhouettes of distant, weather-beaten mountains. Here, nature's raw power was both awe-inspiring and intimidating. The wind, now a relentless force, whipped at their clothing and scattered loose strands of hair and memories alike. Samuel's mind wandered briefly to past storms, recalling how each tempest had left an indelible mark on the land, reshaping fields and hearts in equal measure. Yet in that transformative fury of nature, he found a sense of continuity, a promise that after the fiercest storm, a renewed calm would eventually prevail. Every detail of the rugged trail was etched into his memory, the slick, rain-drenched stones, the way the mud clung stubbornly to every footprint, and the interplay of shadow and light as the storm's clouds broke intermittently to reveal brief, piercing beams of sunlight. The farmstead, a modest yet resilient structure, emerged in the distance like a bastion against the encroaching darkness. Its weathered walls and steep, shingled roof, though battered by time and nature, radiated a silent strength. Here, beneath the protective canopy of ancient oak trees and the steady hum of life that continued despite the storm's wrath, Samuel had nurtured not only his crops but a deep, abiding connection to the land itself. Along the way, the atmosphere was charged with more than just the raw energy of the tempest, it carried hints of personal history and unspoken stories. The rain-soaked road recalled a bygone era when the community thrived on simple acts of neighborly solidarity. Samuel remembered how, during previous storms, villagers had come together to rebuild fences, share food, and offer shelter to those caught off guard by nature's caprices. Now, as he navigated the winding path with the vulnerable girl in tow, he felt that same communal spirit stirring within him, a silent vow to extend his own small corner of refuge to one more soul in need. The girl's condition, though visibly shaken, hinted at an inner resilience that belied her youth. Her wide, alert eyes absorbed every detail of the unfolding journey, from the churning puddles that mirrored the stormy sky to the robust silhouettes of the distant mountains that promised both challenge and shelter. Samuel sensed that within her lay stories untold, perhaps of past hardships or dreams deferred, and he quietly resolved to offer her not just immediate safety, but a glimpse of the steadfast hope that had carried him through years of solitude and struggle. As the farmhouse drew nearer, the roaring wind seemed to soften its assault, replaced by a rhythmic patter that merged with the steady beat of Samuel's determined steps. The entrance to the property was flanked by time-worn stone walls covered in creeping ivy, and a heavy oak door, its surface smoothed by years of weather and care, opened onto a small, sheltered porch. Here, the farmhouse stood as an emblem of endurance, a home built on a foundation of perseverance, forged in the crucible of countless storms and bathed in the light of hope. Samuel's heart swelled with quiet pride and relief as he reached the threshold, where the warm, amber glow of oil lamps flickered invitingly against the encroaching gloom. Inside, the farmhouse exuded a comforting warmth that belied the tumult outside. Rough-hewn beams, polished by years of use, supported a ceiling that seemed to hum with the echoes of generations past. A sturdy wooden table, scarred by the marks of hard labor and familial gatherings, occupied the center of a modest dining room. The air was rich with the scent of burning wood and the faint, lingering aroma of herbs and spices that had once seasoned many a meal shared in times of both joy and sorrow. Every corner of the home spoke of simple, steadfast living, a life lived in concert with the rhythms of nature and the enduring pulse of community. In the muted light of the parlor, Samuel set about preparing a place for the young girl. His movements, deliberate and methodical, belied a lifetime of habitual care. While the storm outside continued its relentless dance, he gathered a few simple items, a warm blanket, a bowl of water, and a modest meal prepared from the day's early harvest. Each act, though small in the face of nature's vast spectacle, was imbued with a significance that transcended the immediate urgency of the situation. The farmhouse, in that quiet moment of hospitality, became a sanctuary where the scars of the storm could begin to heal, both in body and spirit. Even as the rain drummed steadily on the roof and the wind whispered secrets through the eaves, Samuel could not shake the sense that this tempest was more than a mere meteorological event. It was a catalyst for change, a turning point in a life that had until now followed the familiar cadence of harvests and clear skies. The journey from the desolate roadside to this haven had been fraught with peril and uncertainty, yet it had also awakened a dormant resolve within him, the desire to protect and nurture, not just the land he so loved, but the fragile human lives that intersected with it in moments of crisis. In the quiet recesses of the farmhouse, as the storm raged its symphony of wind and rain outside, Samuel found a moment of introspection. He pondered the peculiar intersection of fate and free will, the serendipitous alignment of circumstances that had led him to cross paths with this young girl at such a critical juncture. The memory of past seasons, each marked by its own trials and triumphs, mingled with the present in a tapestry of emotions that was as intricate as it was compelling. Here, amidst the modest comforts of a time-worn home and the relentless energy of the storm, Samuel recognized that every moment of hardship carried the seed of possibility, every shadow a promise of forthcoming light. The farmhouse, with its creaking floorboards and the soft murmur of a distant clock, became a stage upon which the drama of human resilience and compassion would soon unfold. The young girl, though quiet and reserved, embodied a future yet unwritten, a future where the harsh lessons of life might give way to moments of unexpected tenderness and growth. Samuel, whose life had been defined by the unyielding rhythms of nature and the steadfast labor of the land, now found himself a reluctant guardian of this fragile spark of hope. In her gentle gaze, he saw both the weight of past sorrows and the shimmering potential of a life reborn from the tempest. Outside, the storm began its slow, inexorable retreat, as if nature itself were easing its grip on the land. The cacophony of wind and rain subsided into a rhythmic lullaby, punctuated by the occasional rumble of distant thunder, a reminder that even in moments of calm, the echoes of turmoil could linger. In the subdued light of the fading tempest, the farmhouse and its inhabitants appeared almost timeless, a small bastion of continuity in a world that was ever-changing. It was here, in the quiet aftermath of the storm's fury, that the seeds of new beginnings were sown. Samuel Harding's journey that day, from the solitary stretch of a forgotten road to the warm embrace of his enduring home, was a testament to the resilience of the human spirit and the profound interconnection between man and nature. Each step taken in the face of adversity, every act of kindness extended amidst the chaos, resonated with the timeless promise of renewal. In the heart of the storm, where the boundaries between hope and despair blurred, the humble farmer had become both a witness to and a participant in a narrative that would ripple outward, touching lives in ways he had never before imagined. As night fell and the last vestiges of the storm whispered away into the cool, forgiving darkness, Samuel remained by the hearth, contemplating the delicate balance between vulnerability and strength. The young girl, now resting beneath a soft blanket in a quiet corner of the modest home, represented a fragile yet potent reminder of life's unpredictable turns, a life that, despite the ravages of time and tempest, could always find room for grace and redemption. In that silent, reflective moment, the farmhouse stood as a living ode to the enduring power of compassion, a beacon of light that promised shelter not only from the physical elements but also from the storms that raged within the human heart. With each passing minute, the quiet pulse of the farmhouse began to blend seamlessly with the soft murmur of the recovering land, forging a connection between the tangible and the ineffable. Samuel Harding, ever the humble steward of both earth and soul, felt a stirring of renewed purpose, a determination to honor the silent covenant between the land and those who depended upon its bounty. It was in these subtle, almost imperceptible shifts of nature and spirit that the true measure of life was revealed, a testament to the unwavering resilience that bound every living thing in a shared tapestry of existence. As the second phase of that fateful day unfolded in a gentle, almost reverent cadence, the promise of a new chapter, one defined not solely by survival but by the transformative power of kindness, began to take root. In the interplay of shadow and light, of storm and shelter, Samuel Harding's journey was far from over. The farmhouse, a steadfast monument to countless yesterdays, now braced itself to nurture the fragile blossoms of tomorrow. And in that quiet, resolute space between the tempest's passing and the dawn's anticipated embrace, the humble farmer and the rescued soul stood united, a silent testament to the enduring, transformative power of compassion in a world perpetually in flux. In the fragile lull that followed the storm's fierce overture, a new day unfurled its gentle light over a landscape still bearing the scars of the tempest. The early morning revealed a world transformed. Droplets of rain clung like tiny jewels to the broad leaves of corn and wheat, and the air, once charged with the fury of wind and water, now carried a tentative, cleansing calm. The farmhouse, with its weathered walls and steadfast presence, stood as a silent witness to the night's ordeal, a sanctuary in which the memory of chaos gradually gave way to the soft, renewing promise of hope. Samuel Harding, whose life had long been intertwined with the rhythms of the land, rose with the dawn, his thoughts a tapestry woven from the threads of duty, memory, and quiet resilience. The previous night's ordeal had left its mark not only on the soil but on his spirit. As he stepped outside onto the dew-laden porch, his gaze swept over fields that were slowly reclaiming their former splendor. The storm had passed, yet its echoes lingered in every glistening blade of grass and every darkened, muddy footprint that marred the earth. In this moment of reflection, Samuel felt an unspoken kinship with the land, a mutual understanding born of hardship and the promise of renewal. Within the modest shelter of the farmhouse, the rescued girl began to stir. Wrapped in a soft, well-worn blanket and resting in a quiet corner of a room warmed by the glow of early sunlight filtering through lacy curtains, she seemed a fragile embodiment of the storm's aftermath. Her eyes, which had once brimmed with apprehension and silent pleas for help, now held a quiet curiosity as she slowly awoke to a world reborn from the tempest. Samuel, ever attentive, regarded her with a mixture of paternal concern and a profound recognition of the resilience that life demanded from those who had weathered its trials. As the day progressed, Samuel set about tending not only to the practical demands of the recovering homestead but also to the delicate task of nurturing the fragile spirit of his unexpected guest. The farmhouse, though modest in its offerings, radiated a sense of enduring warmth and steadfast support. Samuel prepared a simple breakfast from the harvest gathered in the early hours, a modest repast of hearty bread, fresh cream, and a robust black coffee that carried the faint aroma of tobacco and earth. Each act of preparation, every measured motion, was imbued with the silent promise of protection and care. Beyond the farmhouse, the community began to stir. Neighbors, drawn by the muted murmurs of a storm that had upended the usual cadence of life, started to emerge from their own dwellings. Their faces, etched with the familiar lines of weathered experience, revealed a shared empathy born from years of facing nature's caprice. Samuel's deed, though quiet and unheralded in its execution, had not gone unnoticed. The rescue and safe haven offered to the stranded girl had ignited a subtle ripple of respect and admiration among those who had long toiled on the same land. In hushed conversations and tentative smiles exchanged over wooden fences, the tale of the farmer's compassion was beginning to take shape, a narrative that promised not only the recovery of a battered landscape but also the revival of community bonds frayed by the relentless passage of time and trials of nature. Throughout the morning, Samuel wandered the field surrounding the farmhouse, his weathered boots imprinting soft reminders of past labors on the freshly softened earth. He observed the land with a discerning eye, noting the slow yet determined resurgence of life among the battered crops. In the distance, a pair of laborers, their faces streaked with both sweat and hope, moved with methodical precision to salvage what the storm had not claimed entirely. Their quiet determination resonated deeply with Samuel, who saw in their actions the enduring spirit of a community that had weathered countless storms before. Here, amid the muted symphony of nature's recovery, every raindrop and every ray of sunlight wove a narrative of redemption and continuity. Inside the farmhouse, the rescued girl, whose name, though still unspoken, was gradually becoming known to Samuel through gentle inquiries and quiet exchanges, sat by a small window, watching as the world outside transformed under the benevolent gaze of the morning sun. There was an unspoken language between her and the old farmer, a silent understanding that transcended words and was carried on the soft cadence of shared moments. In her tentative glances, Samuel perceived the beginnings of a story, a tale of a past filled with unvoiced sorrows and quiet bravery, and of a future that might yet be rewritten under kinder skies. Her presence, though at first an interruption in the farmer's long-established solitude, now infused his days with a subtle, inexplicable joy, a reminder that even in the aftermath of devastation, the human spirit could kindle new light. As the hours advanced, Samuel began to realize that the events of that turbulent night were merely the opening act of a deeper unfolding narrative. The resilience that had characterized his own life, a tapestry of quiet victories and the enduring companionship of nature, now found new expression in the gentle interactions with his unexpected guest and in the murmurs of a community awakening to a renewed sense of purpose. He recalled fragments of his own youth, a time when each sunrise heralded both new challenges and uncharted possibilities. In the soft glow of that recollection, he understood that his role as a caretaker extended far beyond the immediate realm of physical shelter. It was a calling to preserve the tender bonds that connected every living thing on this patch of earth. A few hours later, as the light shifted from the soft pastels of morning to the more assertive clarity of midday, a knock at the weathered farmhouse door signaled the arrival of a local, a figure whose presence carried both news and a quiet acknowledgement of shared burdens. The visitor, a neighbor well acquainted with the farmer's long history of tending not only to his fields but also to the community, brought with him tidings of the storm's wider impact and gentle reminders of long-held traditions of solidarity. His words, spoken in a tone as measured as the passing seasons, underscored the delicate interplay between hardship and hope that had come to define life in these parts. Over a modest cup of tea and with careful consideration given to the recent events, they spoke of the land's recovery, of the resilience that lay in every furrow of the soil, and of the promise that, together, even the harshest of storms could yield to the inexorable forces of renewal. In that shared conversation, the rescued girl listened with an intensity that belied her tender years. It was as if the words, though softly uttered, carried within them the weight of 1,000 untold stories, tales of hardship and triumph that spanned generations. Samuel, aware that each person who had endured the storm carried within them a unique narrative, recognized the profound truth that every individual struggle contributed to the collective memory of the land. The stories of lost harvests, of homes battered by nature's whims, and of the quiet, unyielding determination to rebuild and carry on were all interwoven into the very fabric of the community. In the interplay of voices and silences, a fragile tapestry of shared experience emerged, offering the promise that life, even when battered and bruised, could be stitched anew by the gentle hands of compassion and perseverance. As afternoon gave way to the soft hues of early evening, the farmhouse exuded an almost tangible warmth, a beacon of light against the deepening blue of the twilight sky. Samuel moved through the rooms with a quiet diligence, ensuring that every corner, every piece of well-worn furniture and cherished keepsake, resonated with the comfort of home. The rescued girl, now more at ease in this temporary sanctuary, sat quietly in a corner, her gaze occasionally drifting to the window as if to capture the fading colors of the day and store them away in memory. In her silence, there lay a story yet unfolding, a narrative of loss, survival, and the dawning of new beginnings that would, in time, reveal itself in gentle, unfolding chapters. That evening, as the wind whispered softly through the eaves and the last vestiges of daylight painted the sky with shades of lavender and rose, Samuel found a quiet moment to himself on the back porch. The air, now cool and laden with the scents of damp earth and distant pines, carried with it the soft, rhythmic cadence of nature's lullaby. In that reflective solitude, he allowed his mind to wander back over the events of the past day, the rescue, the storm's relentless fury, the tender moments of shared humanity, and found within them a quiet strength. It was a strength born not of grand gestures or heroic proclamations, but of the simple, enduring act of being present, of reaching out to another soul in a time of need. In these moments of introspection, Samuel contemplated the delicate balance between the fragility of life and the resilient spirit that lay hidden in every heart. The land, scarred yet defiant, had taught him that even the harshest challenges could eventually yield to gentler days. Each sunrise carried the silent promise of another chance, each drop of rain a reminder that renewal was an inevitable part of the cycle of life. The rescued girl, with her quiet determination and unspoken burdens, had become a living symbol of that promise, a testament to the fact that hope could bloom in even the most desolate of circumstances. As the night deepened and the farmhouse settled into a calm that belied the turmoil of the day, the soft glow of oil lamps cast dancing shadows along the time-worn walls. Outside, the wind's murmur slowly subsided, leaving behind a sense of peace that seemed to envelop every living thing. Within that gentle stillness, the shared journey of survival and renewal continued to weave its intricate, ever-evolving pattern, a pattern that bound Samuel Harding, the rescued soul, and the entire community in an unspoken covenant of compassion and enduring hope. In the quiet sanctuary of that long, reflective night, the farmhouse and its inhabitants became a living testament to the power of human kindness and the restorative embrace of nature. Samuel's eyes, reflecting the soft lamplight and the weight of countless memories, carried within them the understanding that every act of care, no matter how small, had the potential to transform the world around him. The day's trials had not only left scars upon the land, but had also sown the seeds for a future defined by unity, resilience, and the gentle perseverance of the human spirit. Thus, as the hours slipped silently into the early whispers of dawn, a fragile but unmistakable promise of renewal lingered in the air, a promise that the darkness of the storm would ultimately give way to the radiant, unyielding light of a new day. And in that quiet, enduring glow, the narrative of survival, compassion, and quiet heroism continued to unfold, each moment a delicate stitch in the vast, unbroken tapestry of life. In the gentle glow of a new morning, the farm awoke beneath a sky brushed with the pastel hues of early light. The previous night's trials had left a subtle yet indelible imprint upon both the land and its inhabitants, and as the dew-kissed fields shimmered with renewed promise, Samuel Harding moved with quiet purpose. His mind, still echoing the gentle cadence of the night's reflections, turned to the tasks that awaited him on the day's horizon. The farmhouse, now a sanctuary of recovery and tentative hope, had offered refuge not only to the fragile soul of the rescued girl but also to a community eager to reclaim its vitality after nature's tumult. Samuel's routine, steeped in the rhythms of seasons and the language of the land, had always been one of quiet determination. That morning, as he prepared for another flight in his trusty yellow crop duster, a machine that had served him faithfully through countless harvests and storms, he felt an unusual stir in the air. The engine's familiar purr was accompanied by a distant, almost imperceptible vibration that hinted at a presence beyond the boundaries of his solitary world. With a practiced hand, he performed the pre-flight checks, his weathered fingers dancing over the dials and levers with a confidence born of decades spent in the cockpit. Every movement was methodical, every detail scrutinized, as though he were preparing not only for the day's work but also for the unexpected. The sky, a vast canvas of shifting blues and emerging clouds, seemed to whisper secrets of a world larger than the confines of the farmland. As Samuel taxied the duster toward the open runway, a worn stretch of gravel leading to the fields, an inexplicable sense of anticipation welled within him. The land had always been a faithful companion, its contours etched in his memory, yet today it seemed to pulse with the promise of a new narrative. The rescued girl, who had gradually come to embody both vulnerability and resilience, rested quietly within the farmhouse, her presence a silent testament to the transformative power of compassion. Yet Samuel's thoughts wandered to other possibilities, to events beyond the immediate familiarity of his day-to-day existence. As the duster lifted gracefully into the sky, cutting through the cool morning air, Samuel's eyes traced the contours of the horizon. The machinery of his flight, an extension of his very being, carried him over sprawling fields and winding roads that connected a network of small communities. The serenity of the flight was suddenly interrupted by a sharp, commanding hum that cut through the ambient noise of the engine. High above, slicing across the sky with an air of stark precision, a sleek fighter jet emerged, a modern emblem of military prowess against the pastoral backdrop. Its streamlined form, marked by a stark, angular design and emblazoned insignia, contrasted sharply with the rustic simplicity of Samuel's world. The jet's engines roared as it maneuvered with deliberate authority, closing in on the modest crop duster as if to assert its presence in the open skies. Samuel's heart, accustomed to the steady beat of rural life, quickened at the sight. He maintained his composure, guiding the duster along a cautious trajectory as the military aircraft loomed larger in his peripheral vision. The unexpected encounter stirred memories of a time when the skies had been a theater for events far removed from the bucolic rhythms of the countryside. Though the fighter jet's presence was imposing, it carried no malice, only an unspoken reminder that even in the serene expanse of farmland, the forces of modernity in conflict sometimes intruded. The jet's flight pattern was methodical, its path intersecting Samuel's course with an almost ritualistic precision that left little room for error. A surge of adrenaline mingled with the steadfast resolve that had carried him through storms past, and Samuel knew that this day, like so many others, would demand both courage and prudence. As the distance between the two aircraft narrowed, the fighter jet's pilot maintained a steady course, its path calculated to intersect with the crop duster's trajectory. Samuel's mind raced as he considered the implications of this encounter. Had his routine flight inadvertently drawn the attention of higher authorities? Was this an exercise of military vigilance, or had the tranquility of his flight somehow disrupted a calculated patrol? The answers lay in the unspoken language of the skies, where every maneuver and signal bore the weight of responsibility. With a measured precision honed by years of solitary flights and unforeseen challenges, Samuel adjusted his course slightly, ensuring that his duster maintained a respectful distance while still allowing him to complete his work. His hands, steady as ever, manipulated the controls with a mixture of determination and caution, every motion reflecting a life lived in harmony with both nature and the unpredictable pulse of modern technology. Below, the farm and its community continued to stir. Neighbors emerged from modest dwellings with expressions of concern and curiosity, their eyes drawn upward as the unusual aerial display unfolded overhead. Rumors began to weave through the narrow lanes, a whisper of an intercepted flight, a military presence in the midst of a quiet morning. Yet amidst the murmurs, Samuel remained focused on the task at hand. He was not one to be easily swayed by external commotion. The land had taught him that clarity of purpose was the only reliable compass in times of uncertainty. Still, the encounter sparked a cascade of reflections in his mind. The juxtaposition of the rugged, time-worn crop duster against the sleek, modern fighter jet underscored a silent dialogue between eras, a conversation between the enduring spirit of the land and the relentless march of progress. As the duster sailed steadily over the fields, the fighter jet maintained its calculated interception before eventually receding into the vast expanse of the sky. Its departure was as sudden as its arrival, leaving behind a residual echo in the hearts of those who had witnessed the brief collision of worlds. Samuel allowed himself a moment of introspection amid the lingering hum of the engines. The incident, though brief, carried with it a deeper resonance, an affirmation that even in the quiet solitude of rural life, one was never entirely isolated from the broader, often turbulent forces at play. The memory of that encounter would remain etched in his mind, a reminder that his existence, so deeply intertwined with the land, was also connected to the larger tapestry of a world in perpetual motion. Upon returning to the familiar proximity of the farmhouse, Samuel's thoughts shifted to the young girl whose presence had begun to transform the contours of his days. Her gentle resilience and quiet strength, nurtured by the safe haven he had provided, were a poignant counterpoint to the imposing spectacle of modern aerial might. In the soft light of midday, as the farmhouse bustled with the subdued energy of recovery and cautious hope, Samuel took a moment to reflect on the delicate balance between isolation and interconnection. The fields that had witnessed centuries of toil and tenderness now carried whispers of change, a change that was both external, as manifested in the unexpected aerial encounter, and internal, as it stirred latent dreams and desires within his own heart. The day unfolded with a measured pace, punctuated by the natural cadence of farm life. Samuel resumed his work with a renewed sense of purpose, tending to the fields with the same deliberate care that had characterized his every endeavor. The community, still abuzz with the remnants of the morning spectacle, rallied together with an unspoken understanding that life, in all its unpredictability, required both vigilance and compassion. In quiet gatherings on weathered porches and at sturdy wooden tables, neighbors exchanged insights and shared memories of past encounters with the unpredictable forces of nature and authority. These conversations, woven with threads of mutual respect and enduring camaraderie, served as a subtle reminder that even the most isolated lives were inextricably linked to a broader human experience. Throughout the day, Samuel's mind remained attuned to the echoes of the morning encounter. In the low hum of the engine and the rhythmic sway of the crop duster, he detected an underlying current of change, a shift that beckoned him to look beyond the immediate tasks of harvest and repair. There was an unspoken invitation in the wind and a subtle call in the shifting clouds, urging him to consider the possibility that the fabric of his existence was being rewoven by events both grand and minute. The fighter jet's brief intrusion into his world was a harbinger of such change. A symbol that the boundaries between the familiar and the unknown were far more permeable than they might appear. As he navigated the duster over familiar territories, the interplay of shadow and sunlight on the patchwork fields seemed to articulate a narrative of renewal and unexpected alliances, a narrative that held the promise of transformation and growth. By late afternoon, as the sun began its slow descent toward the horizon, Samuel returned to the farmhouse with a quiet deliberation that belied the tumult of the earlier hours. The rescued girl, now more accustomed to the rhythms of this rural refuge, greeted him with a soft, inquisitive gaze that spoke of untold stories and unspoken bonds. In the gentle cadence of their shared silences, a profound understanding had taken root, a recognition that each act of kindness, each moment of courage, was a thread in the intricate tapestry of life. The farmhouse, with its creaking beams and warmly lit rooms, had become a repository of memories both old and new, a place where the scars of past storms blended with the hopeful contours of the future. As twilight descended, casting long shadows over the fertile fields and igniting the sky with hues of amber and violet, Samuel gathered with the community for a modest evening meal. The conversation, punctuated by reflective pauses and earnest exchanges, wove together the disparate strands of that eventful day. The talk of military aircraft and the quiet strength of a rescued soul melded with recollections of earlier harvests and shared hardships, a collective narrative of survival and quiet heroism. In that intimate circle of friends and neighbors, every word resonated with the understanding that the forces that shaped their lives, both the gentle caress of nature and the imposing echoes of modernity, were inextricably bound by the enduring promise of renewal. Later that night, as the farmhouse settled into a calm as deep and mysterious as the star-strewn sky overhead, Samuel found solace in the soft glow of a single oil lamp. Seated by a window that framed the vast, silent expanse of the fields, he allowed himself a moment of quiet introspection. The day's events, the unexpected confrontation in the skies, the resilient spirit of the rescued girl, and the communal bonds that had deepened in the face of adversity, coalesced into a singular, poignant truth. Life, in all its unpredictable beauty, was a delicate interplay between the past and the future, between the certainties of the earth and the ever-shifting tapestry of the sky. In that contemplative stillness, Samuel resolved to carry forward the lessons of the day with humility and determination. The encounter with the fighter jet, though brief and enigmatic, had stirred within him a renewed awareness of the fragility of the delicate equilibrium that sustained his world. It was a reminder that every journey, whether traversed in the cockpit of a humble crop duster or within the quiet corridors of the human heart, was marked by moments of unexpected clarity and transformation. And as the night deepened and the farmhouse stood as a beacon against the encroaching darkness, the enduring spirit of compassion and resilience illuminated a path toward a future yet unwritten. Thus, with the soft murmur of the wind and the distant echoes of a day filled with both awe and gentle reckoning, Samuel Harding's life continued its quiet, steadfast cadence, a life interwoven with the enduring pulse of the land, the fleeting majesty of the skies, and the fragile, unyielding hope of those who dared to dream beyond the familiar horizon. In the hush of early morning, as the remnants of twilight yielded to the gentle caress of a new day, the farmhouse and its surrounding fields exuded an almost sacred tranquility. The events of the previous day, an encounter with the modern echoes of military might, the silent communion of community, and the tender rebirth of hope in the wake of a storm, had not faded from memory. Instead, they lingered like soft refrains in an old melody, their cadence merging with the rhythmic pulse of the land. Samuel Harding rose before dawn, his mind already stirring with reflections on the mysteries that had woven themselves into his daily existence. The cool air, heavy with the scent of damp earth and dew, seemed to whisper secrets of distant histories and unspoken destinies. As he stepped onto the worn wooden porch of the farmhouse, his eyes caught sight of a small, weathered envelope left at the doorstep, a letter whose presence felt both unexpected and profoundly significant. The envelope, its edges softened by the tender touch of time and rain, bore a curious insignia and markings that hinted at a world far removed from the familiar cadence of rural life. Samuel's weathered fingers turned it over slowly, as if each crease held a story waiting to be unraveled. Though the handwriting was neat and deliberate, there was an unmistakable gravity in the message it contained. Without a word spoken aloud, the silence of that moment became a quiet prelude to revelations that would soon ripple through the very fabric of his existence. The letter spoke of distant connections, of a lineage steeped in honor and sacrifice, and of the mysterious origins of the young girl whose life he had so tenderly sheltered. It detailed fragments of a past that wove together the valor of long-forgotten heroes with the fragile present, suggesting that the rescued soul was not merely a victim of circumstance but a bearer of a legacy that might yet reshape destinies. Throughout the long hours of that dawning day, as Samuel moved about the farm with a measured, purposeful grace, the contents of the letter became a persistent echo in his thoughts. Every furrow turned in the freshly tilled soil, every cautious step taken amid the dew-laden grass, seemed imbued with a newfound significance. The fields, steadfast, enduring, and silent witnesses to the passage of countless seasons, now held within them the promise of secrets unearthed and stories reborn. The letter revealed names, dates, and hints of heroic endeavors that had once lit the annals of history with their brilliance. It alluded to a lineage marked by quiet defiance and honor in the face of overwhelming odds, a narrative that resonated deeply with the very essence of life on the land. As the day unfolded beneath an ever-changing sky, Samuel found himself reflecting on the delicate interplay between the simplicity of rural existence and the grand tapestry of history. The letter had awakened memories of his own youth, when tales of valor and whispered legends of distant battles were shared by elders around flickering hearths. He recalled moments when the fields themselves seemed to echo with the footsteps of those who had labored long before him, their silent toils and triumphs woven into the soil like invisible threads. The juxtaposition of the humble present with the storied past evoked in him a profound sense of responsibility, a calling to protect not only the fragile life of the young girl but also the legacy that now shimmered at the edges of his world. In the sweltering heat of midday, when the sun arched high over the rolling fields and the farmhouse's worn walls glowed with the hues of age and endurance, a subtle transformation took hold of the community. Neighbors, who had long shared quiet nods and brief, knowing smiles over fences and weathered doorways, began to sense that something extraordinary was stirring. Whispers of the letter's contents traveled quietly among them, carried on the soft murmur of conversation and the rustle of the wind through the cornstalks. They spoke in measured tones of fate and destiny, of how a single act of kindness might ripple outward to touch lives in ways unfathomable. Samuel's deed, rescuing a stranded soul and opening his heart and home to her, had now become interlaced with the promise of a larger narrative, one that transcended the immediate concerns of harvests and storms. Later that afternoon, as the relentless sun began its slow descent, the farmhouse yard became a stage for contemplative solitude and subtle communion. Samuel sat on a creaking wooden bench beneath an ancient oak whose gnarled branches had long sheltered generations of dreams and sorrows. The letter lay open on his lap, its words a quiet incantation that seemed to breathe life into the silent air. In that reflective pause, his mind wandered through corridors of memory and possibility. The rescued girl, now growing into the gentle rhythm of the farmhouse life, her eyes reflecting both youthful wonder and a trace of lingering mystery, was a living embodiment of hope. Her presence was a quiet defiance against the capriciousness of fate, a fragile spark that had ignited a series of events far grander than any single man could have foreseen. As the shadows lengthened and the twilight crept in with a promise of cooling relief, Samuel resolved to honor the delicate balance between the past and the future. The letter was more than a mere document, it was a beacon, a silent herald of truths waiting to be discovered. It spoke of destinies interwoven with the legacy of those who had come before, of battles fought in distant lands, and of the indomitable spirit that thrived even in the quietest corners of the earth. He understood that, though the letter's message was shrouded in layers of enigma and subtle implication, it carried within it the power to change lives. The quiet determination that had guided his hand in rescuing a vulnerable soul now steeled his resolve to safeguard this newfound legacy. He resolved that, come what may, the secrets contained within that fragile missive would be honored with the same tender care and unwavering dedication that he had shown in every act of service to his land and community. Night fell with a serene inevitability, blanketing the farmhouse and fields in a cloak of soft indigo and silver. Inside, the air was filled with the gentle sound of a crackling hearth and the muted murmur of introspection. Samuel, now alone with his thoughts and the quiet companionship of the letter, allowed himself to delve deeper into the layers of meaning that had been unveiled. The letter had stirred something ancient within him, a sense of connection to a lineage of souls who had weathered both the harshness of time and the transient brilliance of glory. It was as if the echoes of a distant past, long forgotten by many, had found their way into the present, demanding acknowledgement and respect. In the stillness of that long, contemplative night, as the farmhouse creaked and settled in the silence of sleeping wood and whispered winds, Samuel felt the weight of his responsibility grow ever more tangible. The rescued girl, now resting under a soft quilt in a quiet corner of the house, was a living testament to the unpredictable mercy of fate, a delicate bud nurtured in the most unexpected of places. Samuel's heart, tempered by years of quiet labor and punctuated by moments of fierce, unspoken passion, beat with a renewed rhythm. It was the rhythm of a man who had come to understand that the boundaries of his simple, agrarian life were not as impermeable as they once seemed. The threads of destiny, woven intricately into the tapestry of existence, had reached out to him in a manner both subtle and profound. By the time the first hints of dawn began to pale the indigo sky, Samuel had made a silent vow, a commitment to follow the path illuminated by the fragile light of revelation. He would seek to understand the full measure of the legacy whispered within the lines of that letter, to uncover the truths that lay hidden beneath layers of time and memory. This journey, he knew, would require more than the steady hand of a farmer or the keen eye of a seasoned pilot. It would demand a courage of spirit, an openness to the mysteries that lay beyond the tangible, and a willingness to embrace a future that was as uncertain as it was filled with promise. Thus, as the first rays of a new day broke over the horizon, painting the fields in hues of gold and soft lavender, the farmhouse stood as a silent guardian of secrets and hope. The land, a timeless tapestry of endurance and quiet strength, bore witness to the unfolding of a narrative that spanned generations and defied the ordinary. Samuel Harding, with the letter clutched in his steady hand and the legacy of forgotten heroes whispering in the rustle of the wind, stepped forward into the uncertain light of morning. In that delicate moment, poised between memory and destiny, between the past's gentle echoes and the future's silent promise, he embraced the profound truth that every life, no matter how humble, was a vital thread in the vast, unending tapestry of existence. In the pale light of a new dawn, Samuel Harding felt the gentle stirrings of destiny urging him beyond the familiar boundaries of his farm. The mysterious letter, with its faded ink and delicate script that had first whispered of a long-forgotten legacy, had taken root in his heart, and now every sunrise brought with it a renewed call to uncover the truth hidden in the past. With quiet determination and a deep sense of duty, Samuel set out on a journey that would lead him deep into the collective memory of his community, a pilgrimage into the annals of history where every name, every inscription, and every whispered tale held the promise of revelation. Samuel's quest began with a visit to the town's modest historical society, a sanctuary of archives and relics that stood as a testament to lives lived long ago. The building itself, its brick facade softened by time and weather, exuded a quiet dignity. Inside, the air was thick with the scent of old paper and polished wood, and every corner was filled with artifacts that had survived the relentless march of time. There, he met Mrs. Eleanor Carter, a silver-haired archivist whose gentle smile and measured tone belied the deep passion with which she guarded the town's history. In her presence, Samuel felt as though the past was reaching out to him, inviting him to trace the faint echoes of bygone days. Together, they combed through yellowed documents, brittle photographs, and handwritten diaries. With each fragile page turned, a tapestry of memories began to emerge. The insignia emblazoned on the letter, an intricate design that evoked both honor and enigma, appeared in several records, linked to a family renowned for their steadfast valor during times of conflict. Old newspaper clippings, military dispatches, and commemorative tokens all hinted at a heritage steeped in sacrifice and quiet heroism. As Samuel absorbed each detail, his pulse quickened with the realization that the young girl he had rescued might be a descendant of this storied lineage. The discovery filled him with both awe and a profound sense of responsibility, as if fate had intertwined his life with a legacy that was larger than he had ever imagined. Throughout the long, sunlit hours, Samuel pored over records that chronicled the lives of those who had once walked these lands with noble hearts. He found letters written in elegant, flowing script, passages that recounted the hardships of war, the resilience of communities, and the enduring strength of human spirit in the face of overwhelming adversity. Each narrative fragment was a spark that illuminated a part of a mosaic too vast to comprehend in a single glance. The threads of the past wove together stories of clandestine meetings held in the shadows of conflict, secret missions embarked upon with unyielding courage, and the solemn promises made by those who believed in a better future. With every piece of evidence, the puzzle of legacy began to resolve itself into a picture that was at once inspiring and humbling. Determined to follow every lead, Samuel ventured further into the town, seeking out local elders and veterans whose memories were as deep and rich as the history housed in the society's archives. In intimate conversations over cups of steaming tea at time-worn diners, he listened as these guardians of memory recounted tales of valor, loss, and the sacrifices that had shaped the community. Their voices, softened by the passage of time yet resonant with passion, painted vivid portraits of a past where every act of bravery was etched into the collective soul of the people. One retired military officer, whose eyes held both sorrow and pride, spoke of the insignia as a symbol of hope, a beacon that had guided comrades through the darkest hours of conflict. His recollections, filled with both nostalgia and a quiet resolve, reinforced Samuel's conviction that the legacy was not merely a relic of history but a living force that continued to influence the present. In the days that followed, Samuel's journey took him to unexpected places. He found himself wandering through time-worn cemeteries where the gravestones of forgotten heroes lay in silent testimony to lives once marked by courage. In these sacred grounds, the cold, weathered stone bore the names and dates of individuals whose stories had been lost to the annals of time, yet whose spirits still whispered on the wind. Samuel ran his calloused fingers over the inscriptions, each touch a reverent acknowledgement of the sacrifices made in the name of honor. The quiet majesty of these resting places stirred something deep within him, a realization that every life, no matter how unassuming, was a vital thread in the vast tapestry of existence. One crisp autumn afternoon, as the leaves blazed in hues of amber and crimson, Samuel arrived at an old homestead on the outskirts of town. According to local lore, this modest house had once been the family seat of the ancestors mentioned in the letter. Though modest and weathered by time, the dwelling exuded an aura of quiet resilience. Its wooden exterior, softened by years of sun and rain, and the wild, unkempt garden that fringed its perimeter spoke volumes of a life lived in harmony with nature's cycles. Inside, the atmosphere was thick with memories. Dust motes danced in the shafts of light streaming through faded lace curtains, and every corner held relics of a past filled with both laughter and sorrow. Samuel's heart swelled as he discovered a weathered leather journal resting on a creaking desk, a diary chronicling the trials and triumphs of a family whose very existence was intertwined with the spirit of the land. The journal's entries, penned in an elegant yet familiar hand, unfolded a narrative of hardship, resilience, and undying hope. They recounted days of quiet heroism amid the chaos of conflict, of tender moments shared in the glow of a humble hearth, and of dreams nurtured even in the face of despair. As Samuel absorbed each word, the legacy that had once seemed distant and abstract transformed into a tangible, living force. It was a legacy built not only on acts of valor but on the unbreakable bonds of family and community, a legacy that now, through the strands of fate, seemed to flow into the life of the young girl he had come to care for so deeply. Armed with this newfound understanding, Samuel meticulously documented every discovery. He transcribed passages from the journal, photographed time-worn letters, and recorded detailed notes from interviews with those who had witnessed the echoes of the past. His humble notebook became a repository of stories, a mosaic of names, dates, and emotions that together painted a picture of a legacy that was as complex as it was inspiring. Each entry was a testament to the power of memory and the enduring nature of human courage, a reminder that the sacrifices of the past were not confined to dusty pages but lived on in the hearts and minds of those who dared to remember. Yet, amid the scholarly pursuit of history, Samuel's thoughts often returned to the young girl whose life had been irrevocably altered by the storm and his act of rescue. He wondered how she might one day come to understand the magnitude of her heritage, a heritage that now shimmered with the light of past glories and whispered promises of future hope. He resolved that, in time, he would share with her the stories he had painstakingly gathered, guiding her to see that the legacy she carried was not a burden to bear but a beacon to follow. Samuel envisioned a future where she, armed with the wisdom of those who had come before, would step into her destiny with grace and courage, ready to write the next chapter of this timeless saga. As days turned into weeks, Samuel's journey of discovery became a tapestry of quiet adventures and intimate revelations. The community, too, began to sense that something extraordinary was unfolding. Neighbors exchanged knowing glances and soft words of admiration as they observed Samuel's tireless quest to unearth the treasures of their shared past. In the gentle murmur of town meetings and the hushed tones of conversations by weathered fences, his endeavors became a symbol of the enduring power of memory, a call to preserve the legacies of sacrifice and hope that had once defined their collective existence. On a particularly clear evening, under a canopy of starlight, Samuel found himself alone on the porch of the Historical Society. The cool night air carried the faint, lilting strains of a distant melody, an echo of bygone days, perhaps the very song of the legacy he now sought to protect. In that quiet, introspective moment, he felt an overwhelming connection to the generations that had come before him. The journey, which had started with a single, enigmatic letter, had evolved into a profound exploration of identity, honor, and the unyielding resilience of the human spirit. It was as if the past and present converged into a single, luminous moment, a moment where every story, every sacrifice, and every quiet act of bravery coalesced into a force that could shape the future. Returning to his farm with the weight of these revelations and the warmth of newfound purpose, Samuel felt transformed. The fields that stretched before him, once symbols solely of toil and routine, now shimmered with the promise of legacy and continuity. The legacy uncovered through the letter and the relics of history was no longer a distant echo but a living, breathing entity that pulsed with every heartbeat of the land. It was a reminder that the spirit of those who had fought, loved, and dreamed long ago was still very much alive in the gentle rustle of the wheat, the quiet murmur of the stream, and in the unwavering resolve of a man determined to honor the past. That night, as the farmhouse settled into the peaceful silence of the countryside and the stars cast their soft glow upon the land, Samuel sat by a weathered wooden desk. With careful strokes, he penned his thoughts in a new journal, a chronicle of his journey, his discoveries, and the promise of a future intertwined with the legacy of heroes. Each word was a tribute, a quiet vow to remember and to protect, ensuring that the stories of valor and compassion would continue to inspire those yet to come. In the interplay of memory and destiny, amidst the timeless dialogue between the past and the present, Samuel Harding embraced his role as a guardian of history and hope. His journey was far from over, and the mysteries still waiting to be unraveled beckoned him forward with gentle insistence. With every new discovery, he felt the pulse of legacy quicken, a vibrant rhythm that affirmed the enduring truth that every life is a vital thread in the unending tapestry of existence. And so, beneath the watchful gaze of the infinite night sky, he vowed to carry forth the light of remembrance, ensuring that the sacrifices of yesterday would shine as beacons for tomorrow. In the quiet aftermath of a night filled with whispered legacies and unspoken vows, the next day dawned with an almost tangible promise of revelation. Samuel Harding rose before the sun had fully claimed the sky, his thoughts still alive with the recent discoveries of honor, sacrifice, and destiny encapsulated within the faded lines of that mysterious letter. With the leather-bound journal resting beside him, a repository of names, dates, and memories painstakingly assembled over the past weeks, he felt the steady pull of history calling him to further unravel its hidden threads. As the early light softened the edges of the landscape, a solitary figure emerged along the narrow, winding lane that led to the farmhouse. The newcomer, cloaked in a dark overcoat that fluttered in the gentle morning breeze, moved with a purposeful gait that betrayed an intimate familiarity with the land. The quiet rhythm of the rural morning was momentarily interrupted by this unexpected visitor, whose presence seemed to merge seamlessly with the very fabric of the community's storied past. Samuel, with his well-honed instinct for the subtle cues of life on the land, sensed that this man carried an importance far beyond that of a mere wanderer. The visitor's features were partially obscured by a wide-brimmed hat, yet his eyes shone with a deliberate intensity, a mirror to the resolve Samuel had seen reflected in the faces of the heroes chronicled in the journal. Without the need for grand gestures, the man paused at the time-worn gate of the farmhouse, his gaze sweeping over the modest structure and the fertile fields that stretched beyond. In that silent moment, an unspoken acknowledgement passed between them. Here was a fellow guardian of memory, a keeper of truths that had long been shrouded in the mists of time. Samuel approached with measured steps, the gravel crunching softly beneath his worn boots, while the stranger's presence imbued the space with a quiet gravity. Though words were few and far between in their initial exchange, every gesture carried the weight of shared purpose. The visitor extended a hand, its gloved fingers steady and deliberate, as if to offer both an introduction and an invitation, a call to step deeper into a legacy that was as much about the present as it was about the past. Once within the familiar confines of the farmhouse, the two men settled into the subdued comfort of a room lit by the gentle glow of morning light filtering through aged windows. The visitor, whose manner was at once respectful and resolute, revealed through careful expressions and measured movements that he had long been a student of history, a seeker of the truths that lay hidden in the silent echoes of bygone days. His presence, marked by an air of quiet authority, resonated with the legacy documented in Samuel's journal. In the visitor's eyes, there flickered a recognition of the insignia, the dates, and the names that Samuel had so painstakingly preserved. It was as if the artifacts of the past had finally found their interlocutor, a living bridge between memory and destiny. In the hours that followed, the farmhouse became a haven for thoughtful reflection and meticulous recollection. Samuel and his unexpected guest pored over the compiled records, the fragile pages and faded photographs telling tales of valor that spanned generations. The visitor's insights added a new dimension to the legacy. Subtle hints emerged of clandestine meetings, unrecorded sacrifices, and whispered alliances forged in the crucible of conflict. Each detail deepened the narrative, a tapestry of bravery interlaced with personal loss and enduring hope. Through silent exchanges and the careful turning of pages, it became increasingly clear that the legacy was not merely a collection of historical fragments, but a living, breathing covenant, a duty passed down through time, waiting to be honored by those who could still feel its pulse. As the day unfolded, the visitor disclosed that he, too, had been touched by the legacy in a profound manner. His own journey had led him to uncover hidden chapters of a history that was meant to be shared, a chronicle of sacrifice and resilience that transcended the boundaries of time. The unspoken bond between him and Samuel was forged in that mutual recognition, a realization that the rescued girl, whose gentle spirit had already begun to transform the rhythms of farm life, was destined to inherit not only a legacy of heroism but also a call to shape the future with the wisdom of those who had come before. In the quiet cadence of their shared investigation, the mysteries of the past began to reveal themselves through symbolic relics and subtle references embedded in long-forgotten documents. The visitor's presence also carried with it an undercurrent of urgency. There were those who, in the corridors of power and within the shadows of institutions, sought to obscure these very truths, to bury the legacy beneath layers of bureaucratic indifference or deliberate omission. The weight of this realization settled heavily on Samuel's shoulders. The newfound knowledge was not merely an academic treasure, it was a call to action, a challenge to preserve the memory of sacrifice and to ensure that the lessons of history would not be lost in the relentless march of time. The visitor's eyes, steady and unyielding, conveyed a silent plea to protect that legacy at all costs, a plea that resonated deeply with the farmer's own steadfast commitment to the land and its people. Together, they charted a plan to trace the lineage and gather further evidence from other remote archives, private collections, and even whispered stories passed down among the older members of the community. Samuel's farm, with its sprawling fields and time-worn structures, would serve as a temporary archive, a sanctuary where dusty relics and heartfelt memoirs could be preserved and shared with those willing to listen. The visitor, whose background was as enigmatic as the legacy itself, promised to reach out to contacts and scholars who had dedicated their lives to unearthing the untold stories of heroism. Their collaboration was more than a meeting of minds, it was a convergence of destinies, a recognition that the past was not a series of isolated events, but a continuous narrative that demanded to be retold and revered. As afternoon melted into the gentle hues of dusk, the farmhouse was filled with a quiet energy, a blend of anticipation and solemn duty. Samuel felt the stirring of something greater than himself. The legacy, once a series of disjointed clues and forgotten memories, was transforming before his eyes into a powerful call to preserve the soul of the community. He recalled the tender face of the young girl, whose silent strength had become a beacon of hope. In that moment, the importance of their mission crystallized. It was no longer solely about unearthing historical facts, it was about ensuring that every life touched by that legacy could find meaning and guidance in its lessons. The visitor departed with the soft promise of returning soon, leaving Samuel with a mind alight with possibilities and a heart burdened with responsibility. As the dark velvet of night enveloped the farmhouse and the first stars appeared, each a silent witness to the unfolding drama of human courage, Samuel remained by the window, the journal open on his lap. The pages, filled with the echoes of a past reawakened, beckoned him to continue the work that had just begun. Every line was a reminder that the legacy was as fragile as it was potent, and that its preservation depended on the unwavering dedication of those who believed in the sanctity of memory. In that stillness, under the watchful gaze of a cosmos that had seen empires rise and fall, Samuel resolved to forge ahead. The legacy was now his charge, a beacon to guide not only his own steps but also the future of the young girl, whose destiny was intertwined with these ancient echoes of bravery and sacrifice. With a quiet determination born of long years spent in communion with the land and its myriad secrets, he vowed to honor every whispered tale, every heroic deed etched in the annals of time. In doing so, he hoped to kindle a spark of understanding and reverence that would inspire others to cherish the delicate tapestry of history, a tapestry in which every thread, no matter how slender, contributed to the enduring story of life itself. Thus, as the night deepened and the farmhouse settled into a reverent silence, Samuel Harding prepared to embrace the next chapter of his journey. The meeting with the mysterious visitor had set in motion a series of events that promised to reshape his understanding of the past and the future alike. In the interplay of shadow and light, memory and destiny, he could already sense that the quiet strength of the land was merging with the resolute spirit of those who had dared to dream beyond the confines of the present. And so, with the legacy pulsating in every heartbeat and every whispered wind along the fields, Samuel stepped into the unknown with a courage that was both timeless and transformative, a living tribute to the enduring power of hope, honor, and the unyielding human spirit. In the gentle glow of an early autumn morning, as the mists slowly receded from the dew-soaked fields, Samuel Harding felt the deep pull of destiny drawing him beyond the familiar boundaries of his farmhouse. The enigmatic letter and the carefully assembled journal now rested not merely as relics of a bygone era but as living guides that whispered of secrets yet unrevealed. With a steady heart and deliberate steps, Samuel set out alongside the young girl, whose once fearful eyes had grown inquisitive and determined, toward a place spoken of only in faded memories and quiet lore. Their journey led them along a narrow, winding path that cut through ancient groves and past meandering streams, where the soft murmur of water intertwined with the rustle of leaves in the cool breeze. The path was overgrown and rugged, hinting at decades of neglect, yet it bore unmistakable signs of a time when footsteps of heroes had trodden its course. Samuel recalled the journal's delicate script, where hints of a secret resting place, an old family burial ground or a memorial site concealed among the weathered ruins, had been inscribed with care. Every step along this path resonated with the cadence of history, each stone and gnarled branch a silent testament to those who had forged a legacy of courage and honor. As they advanced deeper into the secluded countryside, the landscape transformed gradually from the open, sunlit fields of the farm to a denser, almost sacred woodland. Here, towering trees formed a natural canopy, their leaves filtering the sunlight into a mosaic of gold and green that danced upon the forest floor. The air, cool and damp with the whisper of early mist, carried with it a sense of reverence, as if the very earth guarded its most cherished secrets. Samuel moved with the deliberate calm of a man well acquainted with both the land's rhythms and the quiet language of history. The young girl, following close behind, mirrored his measured pace, her every step a silent pledge to discover the truths that now bound her fate to the enduring legacy of her ancestors. After what seemed like hours of winding through the natural labyrinth, the forest eventually yielded to a clearing dominated by the crumbling remains of a stone structure. The edifice, though worn by time and nature's relentless embrace, retained an air of dignified solemnity. Ivy clung to its weathered walls, and moss painted the ancient stones in vibrant hues of emerald. It was here that the journal had hinted the legacy might be most palpable, a forgotten memorial to heroes of old, whose sacrifices had once kindled the flame of hope in the hearts of their people. In the stillness of the clearing, the only sounds were the soft whisper of the wind and the distant call of a lone bird, as if the place itself was in quiet communion with the memories it sheltered. Samuel's heart beat with a mixture of anticipation and solemnity as he led the young girl toward the entrance of the ruin. Every crack in the stone, every faded inscription along the archway, seemed imbued with the weight of lives long past. The inscriptions, though eroded by the passage of time, still hinted at names, dates, and deeds that had once defined an era of valor. As he ran his calloused fingers along one particularly weathered tablet, Samuel could almost hear the murmurs of those who had stood there before, a collective sigh of remembrance, a promise that even in decay, honor endures. The site was not just a grave or a monument, it was a living archive of the community's soul, a place where the personal sacrifices of brave souls were interwoven with the fabric of the land itself. Together, Samuel and the young girl explored the sanctum of the memorial. In one alcove, hidden beneath an arch of crumbling stone, lay a collection of relics, a rusted helmet, a tattered piece of fabric bearing a faded insignia, and a small, intricately carved medallion that glimmered faintly in the early light. Each artifact was a fragment of a larger story, a narrative of battles fought, hopes kindled in dark hours, and a steadfast commitment to preserving the light of human dignity. Samuel carefully gathered these items, treating them as sacred tokens of a legacy that now, by fate's design, had become part of his own journey. The young girl watched with wide eyes, absorbing the significance of every relic, as though each piece spoke to her in a language older than words, a language of resilience, sacrifice, and an enduring call to honor one's heritage. In the shadowed recesses of the memorial, amid the quiet interplay of light and stone, Samuel's thoughts turned toward the future. The legacy he had once viewed as a collection of abstract symbols and faded tales was now a tangible, living force. It was no longer confined to the brittle pages of a journal or the cryptic messages of an old letter, it pulsed in the very ground beneath his feet and in the determined gaze of the young girl by his side. She, who had once been rescued from a moment of despair, now seemed to carry within her a quiet strength, a spark of the same indomitable spirit that had driven her ancestors to overcome seemingly insurmountable odds. In that timeless space, with the ancient memorial as their silent witness, Samuel felt the gravity of his new mission crystallize. The legacy demanded not only remembrance but also active stewardship, a responsibility to protect, nurture, and transmit the hard-won lessons of the past to future generations. The relics they had discovered, the inscriptions etched in stone, and the very air of that hallowed clearing all converged to form a narrative of continuity, one that stretched from the sacrifices of previous eras to the present moment, and now beckoned toward an even broader horizon of possibility. As the day unfolded, the sky overhead transitioned from the soft blush of morning to the deeper, richer blues of mid-afternoon. Samuel and the young girl lingered in the clearing, silently absorbing the timeless atmosphere. The peace was punctuated only by the occasional rustle of leaves and the steady cadence of their own footsteps. In those quiet moments, the weight of history mingled with the promise of renewal. Samuel envisioned the future, a future where the young girl would grow to understand the profound significance of her heritage, where the legacy of courage and sacrifice would serve as both shield and guiding light, empowering her to face the uncertainties of life with grace and resolve. With a gentle reverence, Samuel gathered the small collection of relics and carefully documented the details of the memorial in his journal, preserving each nuance for posterity. The act of recording was more than mere documentation, it was a ritual of remembrance, a solemn vow that the stories of the past would never fade into oblivion. Each word he penned was imbued with the hope that, one day, those who came after would look back upon these chronicles and find in them the strength to persevere, to honor the sacrifices of those who had come before, and to forge their own paths toward a brighter future. As the sun began its slow descent toward the horizon, casting long, golden shadows across the clearing, Samuel and the young girl made their way back through the ancient forest. The path, now familiar yet ever enigmatic, led them steadily homeward, where the farmhouse stood as a beacon of continuity amidst change. The day's discoveries had woven a new thread into the intricate tapestry of their lives, a thread of history, hope, and a shared destiny that transcended the immediate trials of the present. Returning to the farmhouse in the soft light of dusk, Samuel felt an overwhelming sense of purpose. The legacy he had unearthed in the quiet solitude of a forgotten memorial was no longer a distant echo, it was a vibrant force that now pulsed in every heartbeat and every whispered breeze along the fields. The young girl, whose gaze shone with a newfound understanding and inner strength, became both the living embodiment of that legacy and the promise of its future. In the quiet intimacy of the farmhouse's hearth, as shadows danced on time-worn walls and the gentle hum of night settled over the land, Samuel resolved that his journey was far from complete. In that profound moment of stillness and reflection, with the relics of valor and the spirit of ancient heroes surrounding him like silent guardians, Samuel Harding embraced his role as a custodian of memory and a herald of hope. The past, present, and future converged in a single, luminous vision, a vision that would guide him and the young girl toward a destiny defined by courage, compassion, and an unwavering commitment to honor the sacrifices that had paved the way for a better tomorrow.